For me, the first record I had with screaming on it was Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory. Definitely opened up my mind to like Slipknot and Korn, but my mom wouldn't let me get Korn or Slipknot records. So I used to have to like go to my friends' houses and then burn them onto like CDs and then like label them something different and like secretly listen to them without my parents finding out.
Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
Gateway metal band would have been either, for me, Metallica, but also probably Sepultura through Chaos AD. And I really hated metal when I was like a teenager. Like, it was just Metallica or Sepultura. Those are the only bands I would listen to. I allowed myself to start listening to Slayer in my 20s, so yeah, anyway.
Gateway metal band. Shit, that's pretty easy. I mean, everyone's gateway metal band should be Metallica.
System of a Down. I think like a lot of us that grew up in the early 2000s, we were exposed to very unique bands that I think we might never be exposed to on like a mainstream media platform like MTV. You know, we'd have to kind of dig around ourselves. So I grew up in that the post new metal renaissance of music. So System of a Down is definitely the gateway band for me and a lot of people I know.
I think for me, maybe like Linkin Park, I would say. Something like that. Limp Bizkit, you know, that kind of, the new metal was like really like my gateway into like heavy music and stuff like that, you know. Around.
The same for me, to be fair.
Yeah.
Slipknot.
Like early 2000s. I mean, like late 90s, I guess almost.
Well, it depends, because for both of us, we grew up on our dad's music. So for me, it was Dio and Black Sabbath. Well, and Alice Cooper, yeah. And then as far as modern stuff goes, when we were teenagers, we got introduced to Seven Dust, and that got us into
Like more modern stuff, yeah. And we met them, and like meeting them was the best experience. They were so, as you know, incredibly nice people, and we're like, okay, we need to be like this when we become a headline act someday.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah.
if you can imagine 11-year-old me and 8-year-old you trying to introduce our friends to Dio, when this was in like 96, when nobody was listening to Dio, we found out we were weird around that time. Yeah, we're different.
Gateway metal band was Korn. I was 12. I heard the song "Got to Life," and that was it. That was a song that made me want to play guitar. That's why I tuned to A. That's why I'm in this band, Suicide Silence. It's because that song. That was, to this day, I think Korn's like the heaviest live band of all time. But that's just me. Well, I'm in the cold chamber, sure. Come on, you know.
You know, I probably started out with more grungy stuff, maybe like Soundgarden, old Offspring when they said bad words in their music.
Started off with Rush, for me, like getting into like the rock, but then I'd say System of a Down, and like Linkin Park was like kind of more like the heavier end of the spectrum, like the heavy-ish mainstream kind of new metal. Headbangers Ball, just in general, is my gateway to like learning about metal and then like hardcore. So I didn't even know if it's so much of a band, but Headbangers Ball was like, I've learned that there was just like a whole world of like crazy bands.
My gateway band was not a band actually, it was a show. When I was 10 years old, I saw a show on Swedish television. It was Scorpions, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Crocus, MSG, Ozzy, and Def Leppard. Quite Riot as well. So it was a whole show. I begged my parents that I could stay awake, and from then on I was in love. But my main, the first real big band that I fell in love with was Scorpions, and then came Maiden, and yeah, the rest is history.
I think my gateway was, oddly enough, an album a lot of people tend to pan it, but Ozzy, No More Tears was probably my metal gateway. Because of the age I was, and my dad loved that album. So I heard that all the time growing up.
I
love
really
it.
like it now.
I love it. Yeah. I guess there's some purists that like the older stuff, you know?
Yeah. Sebastian, like our drummer.
They won't be named, but Sebastian
Thompson
has some opinions.
Metallica. I must stick with Slipknot, I would say.
For me, would be Slipknot.
Linkin Park for me.
Nirvana. I think it was Floyd was the first song I heard. I tried to buy, what was it? I wanted to buy like a Spice Girls cassette or something, and then someone gave me a Nirvana CD when I was a kid. And you hear that and you're like, well, fuck it, my life's over. It might have been the greatest hits actually, just the black one that says Nirvana, because You Know You're Right is like one of my first musical memories. The second you hear that, it's like, my life's kind of forfeit now, isn't it? I must learn an instrument and belong to the road. 1 foot out the door and be a nomad for the rest of my fucking life.
I grew up in rural Ireland. My conservative parents didn't really let me listen to a lot of heavy music, but my first gateway into like rock music was Bowie. So that was how I that was my first little taste, and then everything from there on out just got a little bit heavier and a little bit heavier.
Bowie.
Bowie.
I gotta have two. So one would be obviously my all-time favorite band, Metallica. First band that got me into metal at all, but then the band that got me into like the heavier stuff was Lamb of God. Like first band I ever liked was Screaming, so it'd have to be those two.
I know it's gonna probably piss some metal fans off. From the new metal side, I grew up on Linkin Park, stuff like that, like the Korn, those guys like that, and then slowly developed into more deathcore bands like, you know, like early Bring Me the Horizon, like Devil Wears Prada, stuff like that. That was kind of how I kind of got into metal. But I was probably like 12, 13 listening to that stuff.
Mine was actually probably Slipknot.
System of a Down for sure. Everybody had toxicity for some reason. Everybody in my life, like all the male figures in my life, all had that at the same time. So anytime I get in the car, it was like the one music I would listen to away from like my parents, like my mom and shit, my grandma. So
my gateway heavy metal band was probably White Zombie. There was this video game back when I was like 7, 8 years old maybe, called Way of the Warrior. And I remember playing the video game a lot and then hearing this riff playing in the background of the fighting. It was a fighting game. And going, what is that? What is that music? That's just the coolest thing. And it was White Zombie 1965. And from there, I just dove into this music. I wanted more of it and I couldn't get enough of it.
My gateway metal band was Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. I got that when I was in kindergarten the day after Christmas. My nana gave me 20 bucks and I had my dad take me to Kmart the next day and I bought Shout at the Devil and that was it. I turned into a devil child.
Gateway metal band or gateway rock and roll band for me would have to be AC/DC doing Thunderstruck on Rage in Australia when I was 8 years old. Yeah, that'll be me.
I think my gateway band would be Iron Maiden, Bruce and the Boys, and especially Big Nico behind the drum.
Probably, I mean, for me, I would like into heavy music, definitely Black Sabbath.
Yeah, Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I mean, they're like the kind of like the original gateway band, you know what I mean? So just for me at least, and then probably for most people as well.
Yeah. AC/DC. Yeah. Listen to a lot of AC/DC.
I would say GWAR was one of them. Definitely my gateway band for sure.
I'd probably say Nirvana was my first kind of like heavier-ish band that got me into metal.
For me, it was 100% Pantera. That's what got me into metal in the first place, is Pantera.
For me, my gateway metal band was Trivium. I can remember being in high school and Diamond showing me a DVD from Ozfest 2005. Trivium was on stage. I'd never listened to a band with like screaming before. And that was the first one I ever liked and got me kind of into some heavier stuff. So I would go with that.
For me, it was As I Lay Dying.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Not heavy metal, but metalcore, but it was my gateway into metal.
Mine is still Slipknot.
He's like, whoa, what are you guys talking about?